You're listening to Leadership Challenges, the podcast where global business leaders share their unique stories.
Today, we're talking to Costas Markides, well-known author and professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the London Business School.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Leadership Challenges. I'm Anke, and I have my co-host here, Domenico.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. And so today we have an excellent topic to discuss, and I think it's a very current one. It's about how companies and leaders get their companies ready for continuous disruption. I think very current in today's world. And as a guest, we have a very special guest, one of the top thinkers on strategy, innovation, and disruption. But before I say any more, I would like to hand over to you, Domenico, because you have a common history.
Yes. I'm really happy to introduce Professor Costas Markides. We all call him Professor Costas all over the world. This is Professor Costas. And I met Professor Costas in 2013. Believe it or not, he's 10 years professor. And when I was at school, at the London Business School, and he was the professor of disruptive innovation. And for me, what this experience at London Business School, and especially working with Professor Costa, was a life-changing event. No kidding. So this seriously, it was. It's so for my professional life, it was this 4 weeks at London Business School. It was totally changing my perspective, my way of viewing the world, and I have to say, really, I still hear some of the statement Professor Costas in my head time to time. I work today with disruptive innovations at the end, so I did change in that direction, and I'm really happy to have you here, Professor Costa. So thank you for joining.
Well, Anke and Domenico, thank you very much for those kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, after an introduction like that, I cannot wait to hear what I have to say to you. Honestly, you make me sound so wise. I hope I live up to the expectation. Thank you.
No, thank you, Costas. It's such a pleasure having you here, and you know, nearly like as good students, just so you know, we have your book here,
very good,
which is on the new normal, on the disruption for companies, continuous disruption. So, a very, very interesting and insightful read. And you know what? And we were discussing this actually, you know, just before we started. So, Costas, what is the magic? How does companies and their leadership get ready for continuous disruption? I mean, it's a crazy world. Tell us, what's the secret?
The secret is they have to buy my book and read it.
Use it.
Yeah,
use it. Is very used, right?
Yeah. But, you know, let's be clear for the audience. You know, today's world, the new thing is not just disruption. We've had disruption before. I mean, our parents and grandparents, they had to face disruptions in their lives. And the same with us now. But what is new now is the continuous nature of the disruption. In other words, by the time we respond to one disruption, another one hits, and then another one, and then another one. It's we're facing a very volatile, a very fast-moving world, and I think this new context of continuous disruption has created enormous new challenges for us as human beings, of course, but also as leaders, as organizations. Challenges like strategic challenges, organizational and leadership challenges. And I'd be happy, you know, to explore with you some of these challenges in the time that we have. But in all seriousness, there's so many new challenges that I have a feeling, you know, we're not going to be able to cover all of them in the next 30 minutes that we have together. But I'd be happy to tackle any ones you like me to talk about, from strategy to leadership and organizational challenges in the middle.
I was wondering, because we know you are speaking in front of lots of CEOs worldwide, so you will hear a lot of stories and insights on what the challenges are. Just from my work, as you know, we are here, you know, I'm the headhunter. Domenico obviously comes from an inside business perspective.
Yeah.
I hear a lot in my conversations about innovation.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot about disruption coming
Yeah.
from market entries,
Yeah.
competitors coming
Yeah.
in, and
Yeah.
innovation is one of the foremost topics here.
Yeah.
So what is your view on that in
Well,
these
yeah.
nowadays challenges?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's true that when you talk about disruption, we usually talk about something new coming in. It could be a new business model, it could be a new technology, it could be a new radical product, and so on. So, and usually, you're very right, usually the disruptions are introduced not by the big established firms, but by newcomers into the industry, the startup firms, the innovators. And there are many good reasons why, by the way. The established firms are already making money. They're having a good time, let's say, in their markets. They don't have the same incentive to innovate as the entrepreneurs or the startup firms. So there is the issue of innovations coming in. But from an established company perspective, the challenge is, how do I respond to these particular innovations that come in? And if one form of response is they have to create in their own organizations a culture of continuous innovation, because the new disruptive innovations that come in, the only way really to respond to them is with a counter innovative idea. You cannot just play the game like everybody else is playing the game. You have to be innovative. So the first challenge that all these disruptions create for the established firm is, how can I create a culture of continuous innovation? And that requires to put innovation into the DNA of the organization. This is not a one-off, oh, I've come up with an idea to respond. They have to put it into the culture, the DNA of the organization, so that it can respond to whatever disruption arrives in their industry whenever. And I'll be happy to talk a little bit about how do you create this culture of continuous innovation.
Yes, I mean, look, Domenico, I know you because you are seeing yourself as an intrapreneur, also dealing with these challenges. And what I think would be really, for me, and just at yours bit in a minute, please, is what does it mean for leaders then? Because we know the challenges coming up, and we know what we need to do in order to kind of like textbook in order to overcome them. But what does it mean for the leader, in that situation? What is the change?
Well, first of all, if you are a true leader, you have to prepare the organization for when the disruption comes. You don't wait for the disruption to come and then say, oh my God, I have to respond now, okay? So you have to prepare the organization in advance so that when the disruptions come, and remember, you don't know when is the disruption going to come or what is the disruption that's going to hit. You don't know. Neither do I nor anybody else. Don't let anybody fool you that they can forecast or predict the future. Nobody knows. I'm sitting here in my office in the education university industry. What disruptions would hit me like 10, 15, 20 years from now? I don't know. But we have to prepare the organization to be ready for whenever the disruption arrives. What does that mean? I think there's two things that leaders need to do to prepare somebody before the disruption comes. One is develop the right mindset. And what do I mean by that? The right mindset is that disruption is not a threat. Disruption equally is not an opportunity. This is the mistake everybody makes. They think, oh, let's present it like a positive opportunity and that's the end of it. It's not. There is a lot of academic evidence which shows that companies that approach disruption as a threat, they fail in their response. Companies that approach disruption as an opportunity, they also fail. The research shows that it's very, very important to create the mindset that disruption is both a threat and an opportunity. And there are many good reasons why. There's psychology reasons why human beings need to be able to look at it as both. You cannot avoid looking at it as a threat, because it is a threat. At the same time, you have to also look at it as an opportunity and so on. And the challenge, the real challenge, in my opinion, as I've seen in companies, is in the middle of all this volatility and disruption, how do you really persuade human beings that all this negative disruption is really also an opportunity? It's not difficult to persuade them that it's a threat. That doesn't require too much effort, but really convincing them that it's also an opportunity, that's a challenge. So that's one of the first things that a leader must do. The second, and I will stop after this, is they not only do they have to create the right mindset that it's a threat and an opportunity, they also have to create a sustained sense of urgency in the organization. Sustains mean it's not a one-off. It's not like, let's create a burning platform to respond to the disruption. No, 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 no. You have to keep people emotionally energized all the time so that whenever the disruption comes, and still you don't know when, whenever it arrives, your people are ready to respond. And creating this sustained sense of urgency is, again, very, very challenging, because in the past, we used to create urgency by scaring people, by telling them, oh my God, look at all these disruptions. If we don't respond, we're going to fail. And we know that scaring people creates urgency, but it's very short-lived. It's not sustained. So we need to rethink how we create this sustained sense of urgency. And again, I'll be more than happy to explain a little bit of how do you do it. But the important thing for people to remember is we need sustained sense of urgency now, not one-off. And to create sustained urgency, we need to go beyond scaring people into action. We need to give them a positive sense of urgency.
Yeah, there is something that comes to my mind is that at the end today, if Professor, at least most of profitable, successful multinational, they have some sort of innovation process. In my company now, we created an incubation division. I'm also responsible for this incubation division, where we have multiple innovative businesses, some pre-revenue, some post-revenue, and so on, which is a way really to institutionalize what you're saying, really, just to have a process. And I've been exploring what other companies are doing. And they can be, you have a corporate accelerator, all kind of solution. I think in general, if I can see from all groups that I have explored, more or less everybody agrees on the fact that if you want to drive innovation, you need to have it within the company, but in a more separate organization. It's very difficult to keep it together. There is always the innovator dilemma. Also, we saw it in the past also when we have disruptive innovation within the same organization, the same division, then you share basically the wallet and the budget. And then sooner or later, there will come the year that you are down with profitability and so on, and then you need to cut costs, and then it doesn't work anymore. So the innovation requires consistent investment. But in your experience, is there a magic recipe? Because you can see that in all those cases, in all those models, whatever is the companies are doing, still you always find out that there is always something that happens that nobody thought about. There is always a disruption coming that is not the one that you've been focusing, because you create a burning platform, you invest in innovation, you keep it separate, you give it funding, you ring fence this innovation part in a way that nobody can touch it and so on, and then the disruption comes somewhere else. This is real life.
Well, two things, Domenico, to say to what you said. First of all, we have to, innovation is not one thing, so we need to be clear when you say innovation, what do you mean? And I like to follow the typology that the famous professor Clay Christensen at Harvard has developed, that at the very least, you have sustaining innovations and then you have disruptive innovations. Sustaining innovations tend to be innovations that reinforce what you're already doing, built on the existing core business, and so on. And sustaining innovation could be incremental, it could be radical. You know, we have very radical sustaining innovations. These kinds of innovations, the sustaining ones, you could develop a thing inside the existing organization. You don't necessarily need incubators or separate units because they sustain the existing business. So the existing managers will be supporting them and they will want to see more of them. So you don't need to protect them in a separate unit or in an incubator. However, as Clay Christensen said, many times you also have these disruptive innovations that undermine the existing business. They may cannibalize the existing business. They may undermine the distributors of the existing business. They may undermine the brands and the reputation of the existing business. They are still innovations, but they damage a little bit the core business, and that's why we call them disruptive. And the evidence is that these kinds of disruptive innovations, they're the ones that you need to create in incubators or put them in separate units and so on. When Nestle developed Nespresso, they developed it in a separate unit. Why? Because they knew that the growth of Nespresso will cannibalize the sales of their Nescafe brand, a multi-billion-dollar brand. So they felt that they had to, it was a disruptive innovation, they had to protect it in a separate unit. So at the very least, I will encourage people to think in terms of, is the innovation sustaining to the existing business, or is it disruptive to the existing business? Because that immediately implies that you have to handle these innovations in different ways. One, the sustaining ones, you can develop them inside the existing business. The disruptive, you have to separate them and so on. But then what you're saying, the other point you're saying is that even if you do all this, you can never predict the future. You do all these things, you do your incubators, and then something happens out of the blue, and you didn't, from the left field, you didn't expect it. Well, you could minimize the risk that may happen, but you cannot eliminate it. What do I mean minimize it? Well, I know companies, for example, like Google, that go and do multiple equity investments in startup firms around the world. According to an estimate, Google has more than 3,500 joint ventures or equity alliances with little startup firms all over the world. And why do they do that? They do it because there's all these startup firms developing new technologies around them. Does Google know which one of these startup firms will develop the technology that will be relevant to Google? No, they don't know, but they say, okay, I'm going to go and invest in them, keep an eye on them, monitor what's happening. The following years, if I see one of them really developing a new technology that's relevant to me, maybe increase my equity investment, maybe acquire them in the process. If on the other hand, over time, I see some of these startup firms developing things that are not relevant to me, I sell off my equity investment, get the money and invest somewhere else. So what are they doing? They are monitoring really in an active way who else is playing around with new technologies, new business models, because right now you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, but you can keep a close eye on it so that over time you can get a better sense and determine which of these many things that are happening around me will be the one that's going to come and disrupt my market. This is just one strategy to minimize the risk that something unexpected happens. But I don't have to tell you, life is unpredictable. You can do all these things, and then 20 years down the road, out of the blue, without you realizing it, something happens, and you say, oh my God, I never thought of that. It's the dinosaur story. The dinosaurs can plan for everything, but who would have thought that the asteroid is going to come and destroy the Earth as they knew it? Things like that happen. You cannot eliminate the risk completely, but you can minimize it. And I think there are strategies of companies monitoring the environment in such a way so that the probability that something totally unpredictable happens to them is lower. They don't reduce it to zero. They can never eliminate it, but you can reduce it to a manageable level.
I wanted to go back. Thank you for that, because that was really, really intriguing. Whilst I was listening, I also had in mind the comment you just made before about what does it take from a leader to create an environment to enable an organization to monitor, being ready, to deal with this. And I understood from you that sustainability is important, because of course you can jump, something is happening, the asteroid might be coming, you see it on the sky, and you will, everyone jumps, the fire is burning, you're doing something. This happens a lot. But what I understood from your comment is that you suggest a sustainable approach here. And you also mentioned something about the emotional buy-in of the employees. And from that, I see a much more humanized approach within an organization. Can you explore that a bit more? I found this very intriguing, as that mirrors some insights I've also listened to and hear from the market.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, to get the organization ready, as I said, I mean, if you think about it, there are three requirements in my mind. One is to monitor all the time so that you catch the disruption or the changes that are happening around you early enough. You're never going to be perfect, but you want to catch them early, not once they become big disruptions and there's nothing you can do. So there's the monitoring element. Secondly, monitoring is fine, but at the same time, you have to create a certain culture in the organization where people welcome the change. They don't look at change in a negative way as a threat and resist it. They look at change as something to welcome. And the moment they see the changes happening out there and they catch them early, they say, okay, culturally, we are ready to respond. But cultural readiness is not enough. You also need to be able to respond. You need to have the capabilities and the resources available. So there are three elements there: the monitoring element, the cultural element, being willing to welcome change, and then the readiness element where I'm ready, I have the resources able to respond, and so on. And we could talk about each one of them, but what you said, Anke, is a very, very important ingredient. In all of these three things, it's human beings that are involved. Who is going to be doing the monitoring? Well, you have to give autonomy to your people all over the organization, wherever they are in the geographically, close to the market, to be monitoring, to see what's happening. Because if you have 10,000 employees, all of them monitoring, it's like having 10,000 spies doing the work for you, instead of saying I have a central strategy department that's doing the monitoring. I mean, you can see that it's better to have 10,000 people doing the work than just a central office. So the monitoring function, you need people. The cultural element, as I said, you need people to buy into it, to say, yeah, I'm ready for it. And finally, the readiness element, again, it's all about people having the right competencies, the right mindsets to respond. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to people. And the key element we know about how do you get people to do all these three things I'm talking about. The big mistake people make is to think that they can win the people through rational arguments by explaining to them what is it that I want you to do and why I want you to do it and how you can do it. And the evidence is that rational arguments or convincing people through arguments and data and so on is not enough. More than anything else, people need to know what you want them to do, but more importantly, they need to care. They need to care at an emotional level. Why am I doing all these things? So winning hearts, winning the emotional support of people is much, much more crucial than winning their heads, let's say. Winning brains is easy. You stand in front of people in a very rational way and you explain to them, hey guys, let me tell you, all these changes happening. This is why you need to change. Hopefully you can join me and this is how you can help me and so on. That is easy to do, but the evidence again is that winning people's brains is easy to do, but it will not lead to the action that you require from people. You have to win hearts. And again, I can talk a little bit more about how do you win hearts.
Yes, I love this, Costas, Professor Costas. I tell you why, because connecting this, I think, is one of the hardest things. You can talk about profitability and everything, but to really have a sustainable buy-in in your organization is one of the most difficult changes you can make. And here, I would love to talk about purpose.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, Anke, please don't call me Professor Costas. It makes me sound very old. Just call me Costas.
Okay, Costas.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I mean, winning people's hearts. I mean, it's a difficult task. I ask the listeners to reflect a little bit. How was it that they won the heart of their husband, their wife, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their partner? How did they win their hearts? Did they give them a speech? Did they sit them down in a very rational way, try to explain to them why they should fall in love? Did they give them a PowerPoint presentation saying, honey, these are 20 reasons why you should fall in love with me? The answer is, of course not. This is not how you win people's hearts. It's the same in organizations. Leaders are under the impression or the myth that they can stand in front of people and give them an inspiring speech and they're going to win them over and win their hearts. And people at the end of the speech will say, yeah, show me the enemy and I'm going to go and fight and die for you. It never happens like that. First of all, the first thing that people need to appreciate that we have to go beyond words, beyond communication, beyond PowerPoint slides. What are some of the tactics that we encourage people to use? Number one, visualization. What is that? Instead of telling people, show them. So instead of telling them that customers are important, don't tell them that. Bring the customers in to meet the employees, to talk about their problems, and all of a sudden the employees will make the connection that, you know what, when we talk about customers, we mean about human beings who have problems like me and you, and they come to me to solve their problems. This is what I'm doing here. I'm helping the problems of this other human being. And that is more motivating at the heart level for an employee than you standing in front of them and saying, oh, customers are important, let's solve their problems, and so on. Help them visualize the customer. If you want them to get emotionally committed to innovation, don't talk about innovation. Show them what your innovations are doing to human beings. Show them how your innovations are helping society or are helping other people live a better life. And immediately, your employees would make the connection why innovation is important. So the first tactic I will use is visualization. Show them, don't tell them. The second tactic is stories. We know from psychology that stories and the way you tell them have a higher probability of generating emotion out of the listeners than anything else than, PowerPoint slides or facts and figures. Our ancestors were storytellers. You remember, think of our ancestors. They used to go hunting and then go in their caves and sit around the fire, barbecue the meat, eat all night, and tell stories to each other. We know that instead of trying to explain to people why this and why that, tell them a story of somebody that was influenced by whatever you're doing. Tell them a story of how your innovation has changed their life and so on, more likely to impact people in the heart. Visualization, storytelling, and the third tactic will be actions. Actions, symbolic actions, how you behave to help people see why something is important, which, by the way, is the tactic we all use at home with our children. We don't usually tell them. Of course, we tell them at the dinner table, but before we tell them, we demonstrate through our own actions what is important and what's not important. The same with leaders. We have to walk the talk, and it's important for us to appreciate that small little things that we do as leaders get magnified 100 times by people around us. So do whatever you have to do to demonstrate what's important, but do it in a symbolic way so that people notice it and magnify it and get influenced by it. The point there that I want to leave people with is that if you really want to win hearts, you need to go beyond communication. Just like you won the hearts of your wife, your husband, your partner, not with speeches, but with other tactics like chocolates and flowers and actions that show to them that you truly value them and love them. That's the same thing in organizations. Go beyond words.
Very good, very good.
This is great.
I think,
Go beyond words. That really requires a different leadership style.
I think there's so much to say. I mean, I think we are at the end of the podcast today. So we need to tell everybody listening and watching this podcast that there's so much more to know. If they want to know more, Costas, we tell them really. They can buy the book. There is one new coming. And they can come to school to meet you, but there's a lot. But I think for us this was an amazing episode. I think it's really resonated a lot. There's so much to discuss and to learn more in this area, and I feel it's becoming more and more relevant. I think before 2020. The disruption was something we were looking in the, we need to focus on disruption and we need to look at disruptive innovation. Now disruption is every day. I mean, is in everything. Is multiplied by a factor of 100. So I think you have to accept it. Yeah, it's the new normal.
It's a new normal, absolutely. And what I absolutely like about this, also from my side, listening to you, is what you kind of suggest and what you ask for is leaders to open up, to be emotional. Yeah. Yes, you have your figures in check and you know what you want to do and everything is fine. You have your business plan, but please, within the business plan and everything, humanize. You talk to human beings, okay?
Very good. Can I just finish with that, Anke? Because we know the most important characteristic of an effective leader is when the audience, the people, the employees, let's say, they look at the leader and say, he or she is one of us. I'm going to listen to this guy. I'm going to do what they say because he or she is one of us. And why would they say that? They would say that if they really feel that you are one of them. So I always encourage people, no matter who your audience is, emphasize the one thing that is common between you and all of them, whoever the them is, whatever the audience, whatever their culture, whatever their background, there is one thing that's common between you as a leader and them, and that is our common humanity. You are a human being, they are human beings. Make them appreciate that you also you are a human being like them. And the more you make them feel you are a human being, the more they will listen to you and the more they will be willing to follow you.
Absolutely.
On this word, like it. Thank you so much, Costa. See you next time in London at the London Business School. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks.
And speak soon. Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Thank you. Bye.